Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Loaded HQ, the home of the fully loaded transfer show, and we are back. So, episode 2 tonight, and we are just over 24 hours away from this transfer window opening. And in the words of our guest tonight, this is the most anticipated winter transfer market in our club's history. There is no doubt about it. And look, we're going to get into it as we did last week, but we're going to get into it a little bit more. And we've got all the rumours, all the links, all the key players that we're going to be covering tonight, and as well getting the inside track from our home in Newcastle and also abroad. But of course, it wouldn't be a transfer show without gathering the boys together, and the boys have assembled tonight, and they are here. So we have the mechanical engineer, as I said last week,
and then it all fell apart after that comment.
I played a little bit of hide and seek.
It's been a quiet week. It's been a quiet week, Pete. Nothing's happened. I didn't hear anything. Nothing. Not linked to anybody.
yeah, and the rest. We've got Marty Party, aka Liam G. How are we doing?
yeah, not dressed up tonight, thank God. Yeah, no, looking forward to it. Obviously, missed the first show. Obviously watched back and tried to get comments in where I could. Good to see it. Look, show exploded, so I'm really looking forward to this one, trebling up on some of the views we've had. So yeah, looking forward to be on, Pete. To be honest,
quality. We've got Richie Rich in the house, the guy that gets us all talking with regards to refs and VAR. How you doing?
I'm all right, mate. You?
Yeah, not too bad. And of course, the main man, Mr. Chris Hall, Mr. Avon. How we doing?
All good, mate. All good. Feeling much better now. So, do you know what? I said to you earlier, Pete, I'm really looking forward to this show. Like, I was gutted to miss the first one, and I'm looking forward to talking all things Newcastle and transfers.
Spot on, mate. And of course, we've got our guest in, our Newcastle's world very own Jordan Cronin.
Evening, lads.
Hey.
Evening, mate.
Evening, mate.
There he is. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Good to be back. I must have done all right last week for you to ask us back on. Obviously, we've got a full house this week as well, so promising signs. I'm hoping.
Definitely going in the right direction, mate.
We'll let you know after this one, mate.
That was the first interview, Jordan. This is the second interview.
Of course, we've got to do an Eddie Howe, haven't we? A 2-part interview. It only makes sense. But look, it's great to have you back on. Guys, it's been an absolute mad week since the last transfer show. It has blown up, not just with the transfer show, but also with the Newcastle links. And look, I'm going to get straight into it. Where do we start? I tell you where we'll start. We'll start with the potential technical director coming in, who again has been heavily linked recently, Mr. Dan Ashworth. So it has been said again through Mr. Duncan Castles, who is in the know, who has got a number of things right with regards to Newcastle United in recent seasons, has said that not only has there been an offer of around 2 million per year, it says that there is a feeling in and around Brighton that Ashworth is leaning towards signing for Newcastle United as a technical director of football, however you have it. Jordan, I'm going to come to you first. Has there been any movement from your side of things? Have you heard anything? Does it look like it's getting closer?
There's not personally anything I've heard on Dan Ashworth apart from last week when we'd found out he was indeed in talks with the new owners. But what I would say as well is Duncan Castles has got a lot right in the past in terms of Newcastle transfers and behind the scenes appointments. So for me, that source is credible, and I imagine there is movement on that. Say the owners were impressed by Dan Ashworth's work that he's done so far in terms of England FA. He's at West Brom as well. Obviously, with England FA, he created the England DNA, as we all know about. So So he's held further talks, and it's looking like potentially he could be coming in. The last information I got is that he was one of quite a few candidates that were being interviewed for the job. But I suppose if Dan Ashworth was willing to come to Newcastle United, you have to take one look at his CV, and I think he'd be an excellent appointment. I don't know anything personally from my end, but I say it's looking promising. There was another candidate under consideration at the start, which was the Michael Emiliano, the former Chelsea and Monaco technical director. Obviously, I think he's burned a few bridges since the last time, given Murhad Qadusi's tweet rubbishing reports that Emiliano had actually turned down the role. So, Dan Ashworth does look like the appointment that they are heading towards, and hopefully they can get him in very quickly as well. Nick Hammond, the guy formerly of Celtic and West Brom, is currently working with Eddie Howe on transfer targets. But if you can't get Dan Ashworth in at the earliest opportunity, obviously it bodes well for Newcastle. You never know, he might have a say over a couple of transfers over the next few weeks, given the market does open in 24 hours' time.
It's a good point. And look, you mentioned there's been a number of people that have been interviewed and certainly interested in the position, because I think a lot of people are now really starting to see, and when we get into the transfers, people are starting to see the power and the influence that the Newcastle owners really want to kind of put a foot down in sort of Premier League and European football and really make a statement. Now, what was really interesting today, and we're going to sidetrack slightly from Dan Ashworth, in that there was an interesting development with regards to director of football, because Paul Mitchell, who is also been linked with the job, he's currently the Monaco sporting director, and there's talk that he's kind of offered his services to Newcastle and really wants an interest in the job. Is that a name that you've heard of? Because that kind of came sort of left field. I don't think anyone expected that.
Yeah, I would have seen the same reports as you guys today. But I do believe he is a person of interest to Manchester United as well.
Okay.
So, Manchester United are going to go for a transitional period at the end of the season, I believe, given, I think, is Ed Woodward's going to step down at the end of the season, or plans to step down at the end of the season. Given Ralph Rangnick as interim manager might not get the job permanently, so it's going to be a big sum at Manchester United. Maybe he is earmarked for a job there, but in terms of sort of leading candidates, yes, he was a potential target. But by the sounds, as we mentioned before, it seems like Dan Ashworth is the man that's going to be chosen if he indeed wants a job. It does sound that way. It does sound like Dan Ashworth does want the job, and obviously to get a technical director of his credentials is a massive kudos to the new owners and their plans as well, because he's got a good job at Brighton, Dan Ashworth. So he built a good project there along with Graham Potter. So for him to make the switch, given he is comfortable on the south coast, to move up to Newcastle and help the start of their project, obviously it would be a big move, and you'd praise the owners a lot for that as well. I say it's a big, great for the new owners as well to get someone like that in.
Definitely, it would really show that we meant business. Rich, I'm going to come to you about Dan Ashworth before we move on. So,
yeah,
look, he's been the most heavily linked since kind of Michael Emenalo, as Jordan said. What are your thoughts about Dan Ashworth, and what do you think he'll bring within the role?
I think we touched on it the other week on Mag. I think Ashworth would be a fantastic appointment. I wouldn't say it was a great success at West Brom, but I think he really came out into his own mould with the England DNA thing he brought up with the England. And I said on the mag, I said, can you imagine being able to do that at a club with players from international caliber players from the best leagues around the world in one team? You wouldn't just be restricted to having English-based players. I just think it will be a fantastic appointment. I felt the one today, the Monaco sport director Paul Mitchell, I just felt as though it was more he'd thrown his hat in the hair and here just to get a bit of recognition to say, "Look, I'm here, if you want," this sort of thing. But I think Ashworth's the number one contender. If that was to go there, I think it's a massive coup for Newcastle if they do get him.
No, I would agree, 100%. But look, we're going to move on because I want to get Martin, Chris, and Daz's opinion on the next point of focus. Now, we talked about him last week, but we're going to talk about him again because things seem to have moved on a little bit more. And our very own Jordan Cronin actually wrote about this earlier on, and it's Kieran Trippier. So he is the player that really seems to be that first signing of the new era. And of course, Fabrizio Romano, the transfer guru, has already talked about it. Top of the list. Newcastle clearly looking for a right back, and he is the one right at the top of the list. And Atletico are just waiting for an official bid, as he says. But Jordan, you wrote a piece on this as well, and you talked about this in a bit of detail about agreeing that January deal. What can you tell us? Obviously from what you've written and from what you know.
Yeah, so information I've received on Trippier is Newcastle are confident of getting the deal done. Now, I wouldn't say that it is a done deal. It's far from being a done deal, but it's certainly heading in the right direction. Talks are being held with the player. The player's keen to come. I wrote in the piece as well, he's not fazed by entering a relegation battle, which I think's great news. Because in this transfer window in particular, there's going to be a lot of players being offered Newcastle's way, sort of high-profile players who have probably agents or see a pot of money at Newcastle. So it's important Newcastle do get the right players in for obviously what lies ahead in terms of the relegation battle, and Trippier would fit that bill absolutely. So he's keen to come back to England. He's previously experienced a relegation battle with Burnley, and with that knows Eddie Howe for Burnley as well. Has a lot of respect from Eddie Howe for Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe signed him permanently from Manchester City. I think he signed him on loan the year before, so they've already stuck up a good friendship, if you like, or certainly a lot of respect between each other. I wrote there that would be a huge statement of intent. He's an England fullback, got a lot of credentials at England level. Scored the free kick in the final, the semi-final against Croatia on the World Cup. Started the final Euro final against Italy. Unfortunately, missed out on the last squad for the qualifiers against Albania and San Marino, but that's probably one of the reasons why I might want to come back to the Premier League. He doesn't want to fall off Gareth Southgate's radar, particularly with the World Cup coming up next year. And I certainly feel if players are abroad, English players are abroad, it's harder to potentially be noticed by the England manager, because most English players who play for the national team are playing the Premier League. So with that, yeah, it'd be a huge statement of intent for me. So he is a high profile name, and would be a realistic signing for Newcastle at this stage, because Newcastle are going to be linked with a lot of big names. And whilst they might have the money to go and do that, you do have to realise that Newcastle are only 6 months under a new ownership. So it's got to be a small building process, a patient building process. And I say Trippier fits that bill massively. Achieved a lot at club level as well. Helped obviously Atletico Madrid win La Liga last year, and has played in the Champions League final with Tottenham as well. So if they can get him in, which it does seem like that is likely, but as I say before, there is a lot of work to do, and it would be a brilliant signing for the football club, particularly to kick off January with a signing like him. Would be absolutely terrific.
I would agree. I'm really excited about that potential deal. I mean, I think a few people said a few weeks ago, I've seen it from a couple of people actually, like that, it seems really strange that our first signing's a right back, but I'm really excited about this deal. But Mark, Kieran Trippier, what are your thoughts about him coming in and being potentially the first signing under the new era?
Do you know the funny thing is, I 100% agree with what Jordan said. I think he's exactly the kind of player we need. I think he'll be battle ready. I think he'll hit the ground running. I think, as we've spoke about, we're going to get listed with a whole host of names, players that want to offload. You're seeing the chat with other players, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a while. Newcastle are doing this, that, and the other. But I think it's the fact that there's probably 3 or 4 names that are constantly coming up, I think, are the ones that we're doing the business with. I think all these other ones are just kind of pie in the sky and agent talk and everything else. But I think he'll be an absolutely massive asset. I think the funny thing for me is I've seen on Twitter people going, yeah, that'd be great. Imagine getting Trippier. But then we need to make a marquee signing. And I'm kind of looking at Twitter and I'm going, hang on a minute, lads. We've just had 14 years of Ashley. If you'd have offered me Trippier 5 years ago, I would have gone, that's a marquee signing. So, yeah, I think, obviously our estimations in this window have gone up. But, yeah, I think the deal will be done. I think player wants to come, as Jordan said. There's lots of talk around it. The name is pretty much getting bandied every single day, so no smoke without fire. But listen, if the lad comes in, I know some people are looking at the money, he's 31, whatever. That's what we need. We don't need mercenaries. We need lads that can help us survive this season, are willing to put that black and white shirt on and give their all for that club. And if he wants to come and do that, then he's got my support from day one. Absolutely.
100%, Mark. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Fantastic stuff. And look, the last update from me before we get into some of the rumours, and I want to get, when we get to the rumours, some are realistic, some are definitely not, and I want to get the boys' opinions on that 100%. But I've got one other guy that I want to talk about because, again, heavily linked with us. We didn't really talk about him last week, but I wanted to wait because I wanted to see if there was a development. There seems to be a development, and it's James Tarkovsky. James Tarkovsky was heavily linked with us initially, and then he wasn't. But what was really, really interesting is that the other day, the Burnley chairman had his say on the James Tarkovsky situation, and he actually says, and it says there, he said he obviously, at least from what he has said, feels that there are other opportunities and ambitions. And what was the key part is that he said we will support him any way that he would like, whether he wants to stay or go. I don't know about the other side. Now, I thought that was a real sort of interesting sort of development in that situation with James Tarkovsky, because, it's been very, very clear that he has been in a position where, he does want to leave and he does want to run out his contract. But, from what we'd heard a couple of weeks ago, that things weren't really moving anyway. Have you heard anything else, Jordan, from that? Or is that kind of, again, is that just, just something that maybe could come to nothing?
Yeah, he's definitely a player of interest. And if a deal was there to be had, I'm sure Newcastle would do it. But the thing with that is I think the 20, I'm looking to figure out a finale, but I'm guessing 20 million for the player in January. He was out of contract in 6 months. Will Burnley want to sell? Yes, probably, because they won't want to lose him for free to end the season. But at the end of the day, Newcastle and Burnley are direct relegation rivals. But money does talk, doesn't it? So, you could have the owner there who wants to sell. Newcastle will come up with the money, but then you risk, upsetting your manager, which is obviously Sean Dyche. So, he has been linked with other teams. At West Ham tried to sign him a couple of windows ago now. So maybe it is a deal where, Burnley might do it, but they might be sort of cautious who they sell to. Me as an outsider, I find it difficult as to why Burnley want to sell their best defender to Newcastle to help aid their, survival push. But you never know, because, as I say, money does talk. I think they say Burnley would be keen to offload him, because I don't think Tarkovsky is going to sign a new contract. But say the caveat of that is, will the sell to Newcastle? I'm not too sure, to be honest.
I think the other thing with that, though, Jordan, is player power talks these days as well. And agents and players really control the game. So, I can imagine Sean Dyche being well pissed off. But I think, as you said, money talks. And if the player wants to move, I think it happens, me personally. Let's see what comes.
Chris, James Tarkovsky, what are your thoughts about that deal? And now we've got that little bit of an update. Do you think it's more likely that it could happen?
I think so, yeah. I mean, as Jordan rightly said, the only issue or the only trouble is that Burnley will be looking at it and thinking, do they want to sell to a relegation rival? But like we've all said, and it's absolutely correct, money does talk, and they're not going to want to lose. James Tarkovsky could leave on a free at the end of the season, but not only that, it won't just be him. There'll be other players. I mean, I was discussing this the other day with you, Pete, when we were talking about Leeds, and I was talking about Rafinha, and apparently there's a Rafinha pre-agreement for Bayern Munich, 50 million. And I think certain clubs within the Premier League are going to be looking around and thinking, is now the time to cash in? Because players' values will decrease massively, and also there'll be relegation clauses written in there. And I've got no doubt that maybe not Tarkowski, because he's going to be leaving on a free anyway. But I reckon a lot of those Burnley players will have clauses in their contract that say they can leave for a minimal amount should they be relegated. So these are all factors that they're going to have to consider. And if they think it's a strong possibility that they will be going down, then I think they may just cut the losses or cut the cloth a bit and take a gamble and just say, listen, let's pocket that money if and when the inevitable happens. Because Burnley this season, certainly they don't feel as resolute as the Burnley of old. Like the last 5 or 6 seasons, they always seem to get away, don't they, and stay up. And sorry, Pete.
No, and I'm just going to say, I think Martin's going to say it as well, and they're definitely not as resolute. Because exactly. Martin, what's happened?
Yep, obviously I've got the game on, so live at Old Trafford. Manchester United have just scored, just under 8 minutes gone.
Get in.
To be fair, Burnley have had a good couple of chances. Chris Wood should have scored probably early on with a curling shot. Ronaldo should have put Man United ahead about 2 minutes beforehand. Ball broke in midfield, breaks to Ronaldo. Ronaldo goes to hit it, but it slides under the foot straight to McTominay, who hits it first time into the bottom right-hand corner. Man United 1, Burnley 0.
And you know what? If McTominay scores against you, you don't deserve to stay in the league. As simple as that.
Sell us Tarkowski. You don't need him now. Sell us Tarkowski.
Sorry, Pete. Just one more thing on Tarkowski. When it comes to Burnley, they have a ready-made replacement for Tarkowski already in the shape of Nathan Collins, the Irish lad, who looks pretty decent as well, actually. Yeah. So, and it was one that had surprised. I'd kind of written him off, but if the chairman is coming out and saying something like that, it could be back on the cards again.
I agree with you 100%, Dan. So again, one that's not really been talked about at the moment. We'll get into the main sort of defensive topics later on in the show, but he's definitely one to keep an eye on, and that's why I thought it was a good one to start on today. But look, we're going to get into the rumours now, the rumour mill. Okay, some interesting rumours around. And I'm going to start with one that came out a good few days ago, and it was the ex-Man United loanee Igrealo, if I'm pronouncing that right. I don't know if I am or not. But he was linked with us with regards to coming over. Now, if I'm right in thinking, he's currently playing in Saudi Arabia. And I think that maybe is where the link came from. But I'm interested to get your thoughts on this, boys. I'll start with you, Richie. When we're talking about striker reinforcements, is that really kind of what we're looking at, or am I being a little bit disrespectful there with regards to his talents? What do you think?
I think it's one of those ones where I think Igalo's. He's got that Ashley feeling to it. I think that's the issue. I think you could probably, he's one of those where he's an upgrade on Dwight Gale, but he's a massive downgrade from Callum Wilson. He could probably come in and do a job for you, but if he was still that sort of level, why did he go over to China? Then he came back, and then his options after he left Man United was to go to the Middle East. So for me, it's a no, unfortunately.
Chris, he did score a few goals when he was on loan at Man United. Are we kind of being a bit dismissive here, or do you agree with Richie in terms of not really for us?
Do you know what? I do agree with Richie. I feel like we've kind of set our bar a little bit higher now. I think we're still, some of us maybe still in the Ashley days, thinking, he's a bargain and he'd do for now. But to put another spin on it, I think we all know that we really need a top striker, don't we? And January probably isn't the best window to go and get one, especially in the position that we're in now. I mean, if you were to say to me that we'd bring in, a very good striker, let's say, and then Igalo was the second choice striker, I would take that, because I don't think you're going to go out, and I've just named 2 names just off the top of my head. I don't think you can go out and buy, say, a Vlahovic and a Martial. If you're going to buy 2 strikers, which is what we need, you're best off going for a pretty decent striker who, you could see staying at the club for 2, 3, 4 years, and then maybe an Igalo to come in should you ever need to use him. I mean, for him, he did really well at Watford. And then obviously he went for the money, didn't he? Went to China for the money, which because he was playing really well for Watford as well. And then he had the loan spell at Man United, and I did feel a bit sorry for him because I don't think he got the run of games that he was maybe hoping for. But I know he said he was a childhood Man United fan, didn't he? But I think there is a player in there, and if you were to say to me, we're gonna have until May for the rest of the season, and we bring in another striker, I probably would take it. If they focus the money elsewhere around the club. But if he was the only striker we were to bring in, I would have big concerns. I'm not going to lie.
I think something you just touched on there, Chris, which is quite fitting, as you said, he went to China for the money. Would that not be exactly the same reason why he'd be looking to come to Newcastle now?
Exactly. Quite possibly, yeah. I'm just thinking it's only a temporary solution, and if he's needed, then great, we can utilize him or put him to some use. But I would definitely, Rich, have reservations about that, because for me, he got that dream move to Man United, didn't he? And it didn't pan out. And then, as Pete rightly said, nobody else came in for him. So that is a little bit of a concern.
Definitely. Just very quickly before we move on, Jordan, any truth in that? Heard anything?
No, I've heard nothing on Igalo, to be honest, and I'd echo what Chris said there as well about if he was your only striker signing, then that would be a big worry. I'd accept him at Newcastle if they were to go and sign 2 players before him. But in terms of, say, the only striker, I can't see that being the case, to be honest. So he came to Manchester United, played a few games. I think at the end of the season was it the lockdown season? I think Man United kept him, didn't play him. So I think his Premier League days are probably over, to be honest. Any player that goes to Saudi Arabia or China, and this is no disrespect to those countries, usually suggest that the player's ambition is gone. Bar the exception of Solomon Rondon, who went to China, obviously still like Rondon, but came back to the Premier League from Everton, and let's be honest, has struggled to make an impression there. So maybe when you do go to those type of leagues, it does take a lot out of you in terms of your ability, because you become comfortable at that level, and obviously the Premier League, the standard of the Premier League is so in your face. So I'd be surprised if Igalo was to sign, but maybe it'd be an option if there was 2 strikers to come in before him. But we'll have to wait and see. But Igalo, no, I can't see that happening. No.
It may say thank you on his shirt, so it's a no thank you from us. I think that's the summary.
You know what, guys? I think that's a perfect way to segue out into the next rumour. So look, I'm seeing loads of questions in the chat about various different players. Hold on to those questions. Keep putting them in, because we've got a section later on in the show where we'll look to answer as many of those questions as possible. Okay, maybe a more realistic target. And I know we talked about him last week, so I'm interested to hear Daz's opinions on this to see if his opinions changed. And that's Aaron Ramsey. Okay, so today in particular, Aaron Ramsey is a name that started to really hot up again. So again, Duncan Castle was talked about earlier on this week. A wage of £150,000 a week, so coming down from 400,000 at Juventus, should I say, down to 150,000. And the key part is that Duncan Castles felt that Aaron Ramsey was keen and interested in joining the club, possibly on a 6-month loan with a view to a permanent deal in the summer. Before I get Daz's opinion on this to see if things have changed, Jordan, has there been any movement on this? Is there anything that you've heard?
No, not anything I've heard personally. We spoke about Ramsey last week, and we went over the reasons in terms of his wages, etc. I think there was a piece somewhere today suggesting that Juventus would be willing to pay some of his wages, which would be good. I know we talk about Newcastle having all this money, but that's to come a time where you have to be sort of realistic and then not just throw money at players, because it sets a dangerous precedence. I think, if that's the right word. If you're going to throw money at players, then in windows to come, players are going to expect tons of money, and I say that Newcastle have to be careful with that. So if a deal can be struck with Juventus in terms of they pay some of the players' wages, then I don't see why not. So, for me as well, I know there was a sort of a disagreement last week, but I think he would be a marquee signing for the club in January. But the one thing with that is I do worry about his injury record over the last sort of couple of years. He hasn't been sort of fully fit at Juventus, but you just got to look back to his Arsenal days and realise what an excellent player he was in terms of Eddie Howe's current system with a three in midfield, like Sir Joe Linton, etc. John Joe Shelby, Sean Longstaff played against Manchester United. He'd probably fit in there quite well. But I say it's not a deal that I think isn't a priority. I say it's probably a difficult one to do. But you never know. If it is true that Juventus are willing to pay some of his wages, then Newcastle might take a punt on him. Because I'd imagine Ramsey is keen to come back to England. So at the minute, probably unlikely, but certainly not one I'd rule out. One to watch, I'd say.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. Daz, has your opinion changed from last week? I know you were kind of dead against him, weren't you?
Yeah, I still am, to tell you the truth, Pete. But okay, if he was coming on loan, I said that'd be okay. And yeah, you kind of do question what the Juventus been giving him that kind of wages in the first place. I know it was a free transfer, and they're willing to pay some of his wages to come to us. That kind of says a bit as well to me. And as well, okay, as Jordan has just mentioned, it's throwing money at everything. It's eventually going to catch up with us, the financial fair play. We have to have that in mind later down the line as well. And the other thing I was going to say on Aaron Ramsey is, right, Grant bringing in Trippier, who's 31. I wouldn't be bringing in too many other players that are in that kind of age bracket. I'd bring them players a little bit younger and even younger again, and to kind of build for the future as well. Okay, I know we're in a difficult spot, but so he wouldn't be top of my list by any stretch of the imagination. And if it got to later in the window, yeah, then I'd look at, and we were still looking to fill up that position, I'd bring him in then, but not the first 2 weeks. I don't really want to see him rocking up in the first 2 weeks.
No, that's a fair point. Quick round robin then. So Mark, Richie, then Chris, Aaron Ramsey. Would you be happy with that?
I'd take him, yeah. I think it's just the kind of deal would work for us right now. 6 months, pay something towards it, see how things go. You've no real risk on the injury front. And you get him in, steady the ship, throw him in midfield. I think it's a good deal for us that we should be looking at. Bring that experience in again to get us through to the summer. Then you make a decision. So for me, I think it would be a bit of a no-brainer, but that's just me.
Counter question for Martin there. Jack Wilshere, would you still take him?
I'd take him over Ramsey. His injuries are underrated. We should definitely go back in for Wilshere. He's definitely not doing nothing. I'd take him over Jeff Hendrick anyway, so you can all laugh if you want. I'd still take him. You know what it is? I've taken stick for Jack Wilshere for the last 2 years since lockdown. I'm not giving up on him coming.
Well, I don't think there'd be many Newcastle fans that would disagree with you that in taking Wilshere over Jeff Hendricks. I think most would agree.
Go get him, Andy. Go get him.
Richie, Aaron Ramsey.
I'm exactly the same as Mark. We were discussing it off air before the show. I think it's a perfect 6 month deal. We pay half his wages pretty much. Gets us to have a chance to look at them properly. Hopefully, obviously, he keeps us in the Premier League. But even if it wasn't to work out, it could be somewhere in the summer you could readdress it for, go for a main target. You might want to see the similar sort of, like both me and Mark both agree that we think James Ward-Prowse would be a fantastic addition, and that could be something where you're not going to get him in the January transfer, but you might be able to revisit it in the summer or something like that. So Aaron Ramsey could be a stopgap in so many ways, whether it be just a 6-month loan and that's it, full stop, or you assess him to a view to signing him in the summer when his contract runs out with Juve. So, yeah, I think it's a fantastic 6-month move.
Nah, fair play. Chris, would you agree with that?
Pete, can I change the question slightly to Chris and go? We're talking about Aaron Ramsey. Can I then throw in Aaron Ramsey or Genie as part of your answer?
Daz, that was scary, mate, because I was literally going to say the exact same thing. My only concern with Ramsey is the loan spot. The loan spot. I know we've got 2 loan spots that we could utilise, and I was going to say I would definitely take Ramsey, and I think he's a really good professional. During his time at Arsenal, he kept his head down. I know Wenger was a big fan of him and didn't want to lose him to Juve. I would take him in a heartbeat on loan. I certainly wouldn't sign him permanently because I'd need to see him first. But my only concern is the loan spots. And I was just, honestly, Daz, it's like we've spoken. I was going to say, would you take him over Genie? And for me, I wouldn't. I'd take Genie Van Alzen back tomorrow. I think he's fantastic.
Chris, just to clear up on the loan, on the loan deal, and Jordan might be able to clarify this. I'm sure it's you allow 2 domestic loans, like from the Premier League, and so they're going to be for 1 from each team. But I don't think there's a rule on how many loans you can take from overseas. Is that right, John?
I think that's right.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it's definitely 2 domestic loans,
right.
Which Newcastle have sort of tended to utilise, haven't they, in recent seasons. Overseas, I'm guessing you are right, Rich, but I would have to actually check that.
I think it is. That's what I was going to say. So, Chris, there you go. You don't have to choose between the 2. Just get both of them.
Get them both. Yeah, why not?
I think it is unlimited in terms of European loans. You can loan out as many as you want, really.
Saying that, Pete, do you remember at Watford? I'm sure didn't Watford have about 8 players on loan, or from Italy?
Most of them from Udinese, their parent club as well. So they did utilise that market really, really well. But,
make sure to give Genie the home games and Ramsey the away games. Sorted it.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, I'll move on. We've touched on Genie, and he was going to be one that I was going to touch on next. So I'm glad that we covered that, because there have been a few more links with Genie coming in, potentially to Newcastle. And we have been the main club that he's linked with. I think it's very, very clear that Genie Wijnaldum wants to leave to get regular football, because he's been used to playing regularly throughout his whole career, and I think he's finding it difficult at PSG. So if we could match it, or certainly cover a part of his wages, I do think that's a deal. And I did touch on it last week, and I said to Jordan, I do feel like it's a little bit of unfinished business, him coming back to Newcastle, and really kind of, he wanted to stay longer than 1 year. He didn't get the chance. I think he'd get the chance to come back and try and put things right. And what better way of coming back and putting things right by keeping us in the league and allowing us to kind of flourish and going forward. So definitely want to touch on and keep a hold of. Okay, going back to the strikers. The Brazilian sensation, Gabigol, as he's referred to, or Gabrielle Barbosa. He, again, has been linked with Newcastle, and this particular link says that we're in a disadvantage with regards to other clubs, I think, because of the situation that we're in currently in the league. But again, we've got the finances to be able to get him over to Europe, and there is talk that there's possibilities that he wants to come back and play in Europe. Jordan, have you heard anything with regards to Barbosa, with regards to him coming to Newcastle?
Another one I'll probably have to shut down. Not one I've become a transfer rumour shutdown show. This isn't Ross. But no, he's not someone I've personally heard, but again would maybe potentially fit the bill of a loan to buy, which I discussed on last week's show potentially. But the thing that would worry me about Barbosa is his record in Europe hasn't been great. I think he's went into Milan quite young, had a loan spell at Benfica and didn't really set the world alight. Has done well in Brazil at Santos, and I think now Flamengo. So maybe his time back in Brazil, he'll want to come back to Europe as sort of to prove a point. potentially, but see, you're looking for particularly now with Callum Wilson injured, you are looking for a potentially more key striker, which is also difficult to get in January. But then you go and get someone if Wilson's injury is bad as sort of feared 6 weeks, which would take into February. So I'd hope that Newcastle would look for better than potentially bought by Barbosa, but I'm not sure. I'd say it's such a difficult market to deal with in terms of strikers. So again, not a name I've heard, but maybe, I'm not sure. Say a loan to buy deals or something Newcastle may look to do, but in terms of his pedigree, not one that I think would get fans completely excited.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think with the Callum Wilson injury, I think we're looking at someone that can come in and make an instant impact, and someone coming from overseas, certainly South America. There's no guarantee with that, really. But Richie, would he be the guy that you would go to with Callum Wilson being injured?
It wouldn't be my first choice. I think a bit like I'll echo what Jordan said. My concern would be his record in major leagues in Europe. He didn't really do it when he was in Italy. Yes, he's done it in Brazil, but the standard of the league over there isn't great, realistically. I think the only way you'd be looking at him is perhaps towards the end of the window, depending on who else is available. And I think you'd have to look at like a loan at the end of the season, possibly like just echo base exactly what Jordan said. See if he can hack it in the Premier League. Because I would hate to, I know everyone jokes on we've got all the money to burn in the world, but you still don't want to be putting 20, 25 million at someone who's actually just, you pretty much just flush it down the toilet on someone. I would happily take him for 6 months at the end of the window if we're still needing someone. View to a buy in the summer or the option rather than having like not necessarily one where you're obliged to go ahead with it. If there was an option, I think that's probably the only way I'd probably do the deal.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. And we'll move on from that point because I think you guys have covered that really well. One other I wanted to cover just before we move forward, and it's an interesting one because some people may say it's unrealistic. I actually think there is an opportunity here to exploit the situation and take advantage, and it is Isco. Isco currently at Real Madrid. Real Madrid have said that there are a number of players that are available for transfer this January transfer window. Gareth Bale is one. Isco is another. And from the Madrid zone, that they've said that Newcastle are interested, and the net wages of 6 million per year, it wouldn't be an issue. And interestingly, Isco would like to play in the Premier League. Or it says Bundesliga, but I think he would be really suited to the Premier League. Boys, I want to get your opinions on this. We'll start with you, Chris. Isco. Firstly, I want to know, do you think that it would be a realistic or it's a realistic transfer, something that we could potentially get into Newcastle?
1,000,000%. I think when we talk about unrealistic signings, for me, that's the players like Mbappe, Haaland, players at the very, very top of the game, playing for the very top clubs. Now, I know Isco plays for Real Madrid, but we all know that La Liga is on a downward spiral. They've lost some big players. They've lost Ronaldo. They've lost Messi. The league itself, because of COVID and all the financial restrictions and stuff, there's going to be clubs that need to offload players. Now, whether people like it or not, Newcastle are one of the clubs where other clubs will look at us and think, we need rid of him, let's offer him to Newcastle. And I think realistically, if you're looking at clubs in the Premier League who could afford Isco and who could attract Isco, I do think outside of the top 4, maybe top 5, Newcastle's probably the next in line. Don't forget, it's a very exciting project, isn't it? We're only at the beginning of the journey, and you can't go for like the real top level players. But Isco certainly falls in tier 2, tier 3 bracket for me. He's a top player, but I think his time at Madrid's up. They want to clear the wage bill. I think it's very realistic. My only concern with Isco would be whether that drive, whether that, determination's there to be part of a new project. And going back to what I was saying earlier about bringing, certain players in, it's got to be like Adam Ramsey, we were talking about, professionalism and stuff like that. My only concern with someone like Isco is, and I've got the same feeling over players as well, like Usman Dembele, it's whether or not they've got that drive and the hunger. Someone like Adam Ramsey, I don't have any concerns over because I've seen him in the Premier League and I've seen his work ethic. Whereas with Isco, I whenever I've watched him, and I haven't watched him all that often, I've got to be honest, but he strikes me very much as like a luxury player. I think technically, I think he's brilliant. Whether or not he could put up with the physicality and the pace of the Premier League, I'm not sure. And for me, this window is all about bringing in players who either are Premier League experienced or who have got those qualities that we need in this dogfight that we find ourselves in, because we don't want to drop down to the Championship, obviously. So we've got to bring in the right kind of players. And if we're bringing in loan deals, I probably wouldn't be going for someone like Isco. I could see him maybe turning out a bit like a James Rodriguez or something like that, superstar. But maybe for next season, when we've got a whole season ahead of us. Right now, we need players who are going to fight. That's what we really need. And so I'm not sure. I will be going for Isco, but certainly we could attract him, and certainly I don't think there'd be any problem getting him.
No, I think you make some really good points there. And Paul Oxley in the chat has said quite rightly, Isco coming in the middle of winter, he can't see it happening. I think Lee put further up, Lee Errington put Real Madrid and Barcelona fire sale. Good pickings from both clubs. So,
but do you not think though, Pete? Sorry to butt in.
No,
I tell you what Chris is saying, but for me, Isco could be somebody like what Zola was to Chelsea.
Yeah,
for us, he could be the kind of player that you don't want him to go box to box. He doesn't need to be a massive ball winner, but what he does and what he could do with his experience, in particular from La Liga or anywhere else, is he could just sit at the front of that two or in behind the strikers, pinging little balls, little interconnecting plays, little playmaker that we probably have never had. I'd say probably since Kabay of that era. So for me, Isco, if you can get him in particular with La Liga being as skint as they are, I would be saying I would take him for 6 months or on an 18-month contract and stick him in there. If he plays one in every 2 games or every 3, do you know what? I tell you what, he'd do you damage. Yeah, another goal there. Sorry, yeah. Also, Man U 3, Burnley 0.
Wonderful stuff.
Oh, hang on, could be offside here. Looks like Cavani's offside. Oh, Ronaldo scored it. Yeah, anyway, carry on.
Hopefully the goal will keep raining at Old Trafford. But Jordan, I'm interested in your opinion. Not necessarily whether you've heard the links. If you have, then please share. But would Isco be a player that you think you would take at Newcastle? In our current fight for survival at the moment.
It's a difficult one because Chris said there about him being a luxury player, which he is. And I do fear a Newcastle squad that they can't carry too many luxury players. I get that impression with Alan St-Maxim at times as well. For the brilliance that he is going forward and what he offers Newcastle, there is times where I do feel like Newcastle are sort of carrying him as a defensive unit, but it's one of them where you can't not have St-Maxim in your start 11 because of what he gives you. But you almost can't have too many St-Maxims in your team when you're that bad defensively. And that's what Newcastle are at the minute. Unfortunately, Newcastle are, they can't afford to carry players. They need everyone pulling in the same direction. And I just doubt that Isco would be wanting to, to track back and stuff like that. You can get away with it at times with St-Maxim in terms of him not tracking back because he's so good going forward. But there is times this season as well where it has felt like St-Maxim has been a little bit of a passenger, to be honest. But as I say, he gets away with it because he's Newcastle's star man. So an Isco would probably be great in like a Manchester City or a Liverpool team. But again, I don't think them two clubs would look to take him. Unfortunately, with Newcastle at the moment, they've got to sort of focus on getting the defence right first before you hand luxury rules out to players.
3-1. Burnley have just scored.
Why are we celebrating a Burnley goal?
That's not the kind of update I'm looking for.
Oh no, sorry lads. I'm just a roving reporter here. Do you know what I mean? I'm not even a sub editor or nothing. I'm just watching.
We only want goals where the red and whites are putting the ball in the net, not the other one.
There's more to come from Man United, but it's a soft goal. Maguire, the 80 million brick, can't stick a tackle in through his legs, through his legs and into the goal. Oh, he's brutal. What a pile of shit. Anyway, carry on, lads. He's absolutely brutal. God almighty.
One thing's for sure, we're going to keep you bang up to date with the football this evening. Mighty Party's on the button with the goals as they come in. But look, we've gone through some of the rumours. There are many, many more. We could spend all day on them. We're not. We're going to cover all the players over the course of the next sort of 5 minutes. But we're going to move on now because as we had last week, we had a special visitor that came in and gave us his opinion from the other side of the pond, from France. And there's been a number of players linked with Newcastle United coming from France and playing in France currently. So he's back. Lee Davey is back with a little bit more of an update with regards to one or two players in and over in France. And yeah, there has been some movement on one or two players. So it'll be interesting to hear his thoughts. So Daz, fire away. Another 2-part vid.
Are we going the 2 parts together or we'll just one and stop and Pete?
Let's play the first one first and then we'll talk.
Hi again, everyone. Lee Davey here, Ligue 1 journalist and writer, covering all things French football. And just back with a bit of an update. I was on the show last week, you may remember, and we spoke a little bit about some of the links from Ligue 1 to Newcastle United and kind of where they stand. So there's been a bit of movement this morning in regards to the Sven Botman deal, and looks like there is some kind of offer on the table. And again, we were waiting for confirmation like that about that at the time of recording this. It's been muted that there's a 30 million offer on the table. And for me, I feel that with Lille's financial situation at the moment, they would be crazy to turn that kind of money down. Might they, try and up their offer, try and get Newcastle to up their offer, possibly. But I think if Newcastle, they're willing to lay the money down, I think he becomes Newcastle's player. I think he's a player who's primed for the Premier League. He's 21 years old. He's got it all. He's proved it in Ligue 1. He's proved it in the Champions League. And, it'll be a big miss for Lille, but Lille are bracing themselves for a fire sale anyway this summer, where a lot of their title-winning team will be shipped out. So again, this will be a really exciting signing for Newcastle if it gets over the line. This will be a statement of intent, saying, we're going to go and buy these great up-and-coming players, and we're going to do everything we can to stay in the league. But also, if Newcastle do stay up, this is a player that can go on and be a really, really top defender in European football. So, really good signing at the start of this new era for Newcastle United. Certainly one I would endorse. I've watched him now for the best part of 2 years, and he really has got it all. So we'll see if that one gets over the line. Another one from Lille was Yusuf Yazichi, which is a young Turkish player who's attacking midfielder. He signed back in 2019, suffered an ACL injury in early 2020, really set him back, put him out for about 5 months, but a really good, interesting player, pacey, likes to take a player on, technically good, and something that, he's an interesting option, but I personally don't see Newcastle signing him now, because he's kind of in the mould of Almiron and what they already have, and Newcastle need to focus on what they don't have at this moment in time. But certainly one of those players that you may look to in the summer or the transfer window after that. On to the Marseille boys now. So we've got Boubacar Kamara. That link's not going anywhere. continually linked with Newcastle United, but also linked with Manchester United and Arsenal. But it really seems like Newcastle are leading the way here. He's out of contract in the summer, so Marseille would sell in January just to recoup some kind of fee for him. It seems as though Newcastle would be the winning party to offer some kind of fee for the player. If that is the case, then I think he'll be Newcastle's man. I don't see the likes of Manchester United offering money for him as it stands right now. They would be willing to take him on a free, I'm sure, but I'd be surprised if they put a fee in at this stage. He's a player that will make more of a difference to Newcastle than he would to Manchester United with the midfielders United have. But to Newcastle, he would be a really good signing and someone that could really help in that relegation battle. And another recent link is with Gerson, the Brazilian midfielder, which surprises me a little bit because he only arrived at Marseille in the summer. He took a couple of months to find his feet, but he's weighed in with a few goals recently. Yes, just kind of, as I said, he's finding his way in Jorge Sampaoli's side at the moment. So I'd be very surprised to see him be shipped off in January. I wouldn't rule out a move at the end of the season, but again, probably not someone who's going to hit the ground running. As he's shown at Marseille, it's took him a little bit of time to adjust to European football. Certainly going into a Premier League relegation battle, I'm not sure, I'd want him, he would be a first choice for Newcastle United at this current stage.
So again, Lee Davey with his first part of his updates from over in France. And look, there's no better place to start than Sven Botman. Sven Botman today, through Craig Hope and one or two others, I think it was the Daily Mail, reported that Sven Botman, or should I say Newcastle and Lille, are in talks with a potential deal, and it was quoted around the 30 million mark for Sven Botman. And he is a highly rated young defender, a young centre-back, a left-sided centre-back as well, which is even more of a rare commodity in European football. I'll start with you, Jordan. Jordan, are you hearing similar things with regard to there being talks in and around the deal for Sven Botman?
Yeah, I think I mentioned on last week's show that he's definitely a top target for Newcastle, and I think the chances of getting him has probably increased over the last 7 days. I think at first there was a bit of reluctance over his price tag, or Leo potentially not wanting to sell. As I say, over the last week, it has become a little bit more likely that this deal might happen. It's nowhere close to being done. I believe the two clubs are in negotiations. I think it was Craig Hope who promoted the piece earlier. I think it was a £30 million price tag that was rumoured. So who knows? I say he was a target at the start of the window, and it seems that it is becoming more likely that a deal could be had, and what a sign it would be as well. He's helped Lille win the Ligue 1, and the fact that he's a left-sided centre half, as you mentioned there. If you're a left-sided centre half, it just seems to sort of add value onto your price tag, because there's not many of them about. And it offers a good balance to your defence. Particularly Newcastle have always had it with you've had a right-footed Jamal Lewis or a Fernandes or a Shaw, but then the left side as well. I always liked Kieran Clark as a left side defender because it added balance in there. But unfortunately, I think with Kieran Clark over the last 18 months or so, has probably just went over the hill a little bit and has dropped these levels just purely because he's getting older. Paul Dummett was always a player that I still like in that position now. I think Paul Dummett is extremely underrated in Newcastle, particularly last year when they stayed up and they played the 5 at the back system and Dummett played as a left-sided centre half of the 3. It just adds so much balance to your defence to have a left-sided defender. So if Newcastle can get that deal done, as I say, a really, really good defender, good on the ball, physical, that would be a top signing. And I say it's looking a lot more likely that a deal could be done. I'm not saying that a deal will be done, but it's certainly one to certainly keep an eye on.
No, I think it's a great point. Martin, centre-back positions, we have been desperate for quality in that position for a long, long time. You know more than anybody with your views on the Spurs.
You know where he's going with this.
What are your thoughts about the potential of getting someone of the calibre of Sven Botman into the club?
Listen, I think it's if we get that deal done, I think for me, I'd be happy with that one. I think defensively we're a shambles at the minute. I don't have time for many in our back four. We've got no leadership there, and I think even at 21, I think he will bring better shape and better leadership to that back four than what we've got now. I think if you were to, never mind Sven Botman, I think if you were to get Sven-Goran Eriksson, I think you'd bring more balance to that defence. So for me, it would be a major, major sign in the age, left-footed, get a really another good command and right-footed centre-half to go alongside him. Oh man. If you got Trippier in the mix to that, then, it's a totally revamped defence. So for me, absolutely. Get it done. I wouldn't care if Lille come back and say it's an extra 10. Go get it done, because he's somebody that could become, which I've seen a couple of times on Twitter. You get through this season, he becomes your Vincent Kompany for Man City. So go get him, whatever it costs. Just go get the deal done. End of.
I completely agree with you, Chris. Ligue 1 champion last season. His relationship with Jose Font, Portuguese international, was the pillar of them winning the league. They were the team that dismantled the money bags of PSG, the Neymars, the Mbappes, the Di Marias. It wasn't them that won the league; it was Lille, and a lot of people in France. And I know Lee talked about it last week, that Sven Botman was one of the pillars of why they won the league. Just imagine that in our back four. That would just be class, wouldn't it?
You could argue, Pete, as Martin's just said, that would probably be the most important signing if we make it. He ticks every single box. He's 21 years old. He's a mountain of a man, isn't he? And you think and as Jordan rightly said, left centre backs are very hard to come by in terms of being left footed. We all saw a few years ago, before Ake joined Man City, I think it was Mourinho or Solskjaer. I think it was Mourinho going up to Ake after the game, saying when they played Bournemouth, keep doing what you're doing. We're looking for the left side centre back. They are very hard to come across. And then when you look at his CV and what he's done already in the game at the age of 21, just imagine what he could be in 4 to 5 years' time. He could be a monster, couldn't he? I think he played in the defence, didn't he, in the Dutch national team with Van Dijk. So if he's rated that highly for the Netherlands, the Netherlands aren't short of really good centre backs, and he's getting caps. He will be a huge signing and a real statement of intent. We're talking about bringing in players who've got Premier League experience, and also, we don't want too many youngsters, but you've got to make an exception for this lad, because he could be really, really special.
It's the future you're investing in.
Yeah, exactly. Future captain, isn't it, Mart?
Yeah, well, January captain.
Yeah.
Not my captain. Not my captain.
You're not wrong. Richie, Sven Botman got Lille into the next round of the Champions League out of the group stages. He's going from the Champions League to a relegation battle, but he's already proven his quality. What do you think he's going to bring to our team if we can get that deal done?
I think even for a young age, as we've already touched on the leadership, I don't think he'd be captain material in January. I think if Trippier does come in, I think it wouldn't surprise me if Trippier becomes captain, just for his international experience, Champions League experience. He's just got that leadership. He's captain of England as well, so that wouldn't surprise me on that one. But I think Botman's one of the ones who's it's so key, because you could build your team around him for the next decade, if all goes well. You don't get many left-footed centre-halves, especially ones that are good on the ball. And, he goes away on international duty. You look at the centre-backs that Holland have got, and he's in the mix. You've got Van Dijk, De Ligt, De Vrij, and Botman. They're the four centre-halves that Holland have got, and they're all fantastic. I think if it hadn't been for having some of the ones around, I think Botman would probably have a lot more caps than what he's got. We were linked with Christopher Ayer in the summer. I think he's a very similar sort of bit tall, good on the ball, likes to carry the ball out, but he's about 10 times better than what Christopher Ayer is, and he's the Norwegian captain. So seriously, if that's the case that we get Botman in this transfer window, that's Ayer. When we were all after him in the summer, I couldn't care less anymore. Seriously, couldn't.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant. That's Sven Botman. It's already been talked about. Dutch international, 21 years old. I think Martin made a really good point. I always look at how Man City built their team, and I think Martin was absolutely spot on with what he said, that he could potentially be our Vincent Kompany. Vincent Kompany was signed, I think, at 20 years old at Man City, and look what he grew into. We always talk about the spine of the team and having those quality players that can build and become better. Do you think Sven Botman could be that guy?
Definitely, Pete. Yeah, and that's when it was Chris Hall that sent us the clip when I first really got kind of some knowledge on him, and that's what I was thinking first as well. Company and what Man City did. But I'm not going to talk about him, Pete. I'm going to play the little clip we put together about 5 minutes before the show. So let's just watch that. Yes, so I want him. Yes, Pete is the answer.
Very, very simple. Straight to the point. You know what I love about that little clip? It was only a little taster. That last-ditch challenge that he just puts in where he just gets right stuck in, just as the player's about to shoot. I love that. That's the recovery defending, last-ditch defending. Wasn't even on his side of the defence either. Come in, covers, knows his job, knows what he needs to do. 6'5", he's an absolute monster. He's a tower, right?
Yeah.
Good in the air, but even just as good on the ground. Left-footed, can play out from the back. I'm excited. Come on, we need to get this deal done. I nearly did a Rio Ferdinand moment. That contract on the table.
Just don't do that.
We're at the wheel. Give him what he wants. But I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to say it all because I don't want to be seen as that guy. But I am very, very excited about Sven Botman coming in.
I've got to say, Pete, 30 million is an absolute snip.
Yeah.
It is. And we are taking advantage of the fact, and Lee said in his first clip, is that Lille are struggling financially and there will be a fire sale. If you remember, there was a fire sale the last time Lille won the league. And who did we pluck out from Lille to come to Newcastle?
Cabaye, was it?
Johan Cabaye, who was the pillar of them winning their title the last time. So could it be that we pluck out their pillar of their title winning season this time and get Sven Botman into the club? But another guy talked about before we move on, Boubacar Kamara. Okay, so it's looking like that we are kind of, although there are other teams in there that are maybe higher up in the league, that we are the ones that are really, really pressing to get him into the club, and we're the ones that are showing the most interest. But interestingly, from what Lee said, we are the ones that are actually willing to pay a fee in January to get him in, and I think that could be a real sort of key component to this deal happening. But Jordan, from your point of view, everything about the Kamara deal, what are your thoughts on the Kamara deal as it stands right now?
Yeah, well, there was interest in the summer under the previous manager, Steve Bruce, and then obviously the previous ownership as well. And since the manager and ownership's changed over, I believe the interest has is still there. He's out of contract at the end of the season, so he's been tracked by quite a few clubs. I say Manchester United are one of the clubs. I think Juventus are another as well. It would be a good deal if Newcastle can get that over the line. To be honest, I'm not sure if they're in for him at the moment, but I know they are still interested, and perhaps say he is that sort of that midfielder that gives you that little bit of bite in midfield. The defensive sort of player that sits in front of the back four and sweeps it up. Maybe that becomes more of a priority now with Isaac Hayden injured now. It sounds like Isaac Hayden's going to be out for a couple of months, and he was always sort of that player you'd look to if you needed someone to sit in front of the back four and sort of sweep up the mess. So, I think Kamara is probably better than Isaac Hayden. As much as I like Isaac Hayden, I think Kamara's got a lot more agility about him. He's a lot more active around the pitch. So, say the interest is there, but I'm not sure if Newcastle are looking to do a deal. But he is a player that does feature on the potential list of targets. So, yeah, on that one, yeah, I'd say one to watch.
Definitely, Martin. Jordan's already talked about the fact that we've lost Isaac Hayden for a couple of months now with him having his knee operation. Perfect replacement for Boubacar Kamara.
Listen, I think it's not only a perfect replacement. I think it's an upgrade. Look, he's a quality player. I've been watching a few clips of him. I think he's ideal. He's what we're missing. What we're looking for here, and Jordan made the point, is what we're looking for is players here that we need, not necessarily the flashbangs, and the marquees, that we might want to look at in the summer. But we need to stay in the league. And I know we've said before on the show, and I've said, not overly worried if we did go down, but obviously don't want to. But I think with the right reinforcements in, lads that want to pull on that shirt, listen, at the end of the day, we're not in control of wages, whether he gets 100 grand a week, 200 grand a week, 300 grand a week. I don't make up those numbers. What I want is lads that are going to come in, improve that team, drag these lads up, bring in experience, skills, and everything else that gets us where we need to be. Reinforce again then in the summer, and then start to take off. So for me, absolutely, I'd snap the hands off. And I think, again, just go, lads, go get the deals done. Let's stop the paper talk now. Let's just go and get it done.
I agree. So we've got in the chat, we've got the likes of Gary and the likes of Dan saying Kamara, yes please, yes, they're really really happy with that deal. Chris, are you happy with that potential incoming of Kamara if it gets done?
Oh yeah, mate. I mean, when Jordan brought up Isaac Hayden, Jordan, I don't know if you know my feelings on Isaac Hayden. Like, I think he's a lovely guy. Don't get me wrong, and I respect the fact that he stayed when he didn't necessarily want to, and he remained professional. But I just don't think he's up to it. I don't think he's a Premier League midfielder. I really don't. When we started playing him centre back, I thought that I could kind of see more of a player in him in centre back, because I don't think he's. I won't go into it too much, but I don't think he's particularly great defensively, and he's nondescript going forward, isn't he? And I think in central midfield you need players who can kind of do a bit of both, or excel in one of the two, and that's what we're seeing now in Joe Linton. He's breaking up the play. He's been fantastic. So going back to the point in terms of Boubacar Kamara, yeah. He's a bit like Sven Botman. He appears to tick all the boxes, and it's nice to be linked with a player who everybody is kind of after. He's been linked with all top clubs, so for us to nick in there and go and grab him, I think it'd be great. And 10 million, it's an absolute bargain, isn't it? I mean, if he hits the ground running in the Premier League, all of a sudden you've got a 30-40 million pound player on your hands, and he's at the right age, and he's going to have that drive and determination, isn't he, to want to improve himself and get all his international accolades and stuff like that. So I think it'd be a great signing. I hope we do bring in Boubacar Kamara.
I think the thing with the signings for me is that you're looking at two completely different ownership sets. Yeah. Whereas we've had Penfold and the rest of them trying to bring in players alongside Bruce 6 months ago. Now you've got a completely different regime who are selling a completely different project. I'm sure that they're talking, and they've got ideas for training grounds, all these other things, not just year one, year two, they're getting these younger players and trying to hook these players with a long-term project. And I think that's why for some, the likes of Botman, the league position doesn't worry them. Even possibly a season in a league below doesn't bother them, because they're looking at the 5 and 7 year deal, the growth from that, and where Newcastle and where this ownership want to take it. So I think that's a bigger seller. And then you throw in the club, the fans, and everything else that goes with it. It's fairly attractive, really. And then you put the wages on top. It's kind of easy sell, really.
Definitely. I mean, look, Richie, he's got some Champions League clubs that are interested in him, but you know, as it's already been said, I think Lee's already mentioned it, but it's also been written too, that you know, we're the ones that are showing the intent. We already had in the summer a bid, and I'm sure you'll talk about it in a second, you know, where we had a bid in for him. Do you think that relentlessness of us coming back in January could tip the boat and get that deal done?
Well, if what's believed, the deal in the summer was already accepted by Marseille. I think it was 15 million was accepted in the summer. It was more about Kamara being unsure of the project at the time. So the one thing that was his issue was the project. Well, the project's now completely changed on that front. It's a completely different project. It's not one where long term we're going to be looking over our shoulder every single season if we're, you know, go to the Championship. It's from now on. Hopefully, we stay in the Premier League this year, but it's always going to be about how far can we take this team. And I think one thing, you know, for Kamara's basis, you know, we've got that. We had interest in the summer. We've still got that interest, so we know he's a quality player. We're not looking elsewhere now. We've moved on with all this money. We're still looking at the same player we wanted in the summer. I'll be honest, I'd happily still give him the 15 million because I think that's even a snip for him as well. You know, 10 million, great, but if we paid the extra 5 million, just get him over the line, I'd happily do that as well. You know, we raved about him in the summer, Pete. It was, I think, Martin liked him as well. It's someone who we've needed in that position for a long time. Someone who can break up the play in the middle of the park. He's another person that ticks the boxes. And, you know, we'll talk about FFP and stuff like that, and people have been saying money this, money that. There's a lot of the people we're realistically talking about tonight who fit, you know, these actually putting round pegs and round holes going forward, and they're not breaking the bank. And I think that's what's really, really sensible about how the regime are looking at it. They're getting good quality, experienced players to fit the holes that we've got, and they're not going over budget, because that basically means that, you know, in the summer and next year and so forth, FFP is going to be on a good scale, not just for over this window and the next one, you know, probably for the next 3 or 4 windows. So I think it's a fantastic deal, and it's definitely someone we should be looking to get in ASAP.
No, I would agree, 110%. Daz, you know, as we've already said, we're in this position where we need a quality centre midfielder. And, you know, there's been a lot of talk over this season and the seasons before, whereas our midfielders are not comfortable on the ball. They're not good tacklers, but they're also not very comfortable on the ball. This guy can do both. You know, how would that revamp our midfield just by bringing him in? What, you know, how much of an improvement do you think he'll make to this team?
I'm going to cut a really short piece, and your question is going to be longer than my answer. It's just get him, sign him. Definitely, it's a no-brainer. I know Man United want him as well, and someone else said Arsenal. But if we can nip in there, and as Chris said, it's great to see that a number of other clubs wanting players that we're linked with. We're not looking in League One or for a striker or something that comes to the end of the window, and we couldn't get him over the line. Just get it done. First couple of days of the window, we've been talking about him long enough. It's now the time to move on that one. So on to the next one.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We've got 140 plus watching the show. Absolutely fantastic support from all of you. Lots of fantastic questions in the chat. And actually, there's a number of people that are talking about potential outgoings. That will come next week. You know, we've got a section on that show. We'll start looking at outgoings as the window opens. So please keep some of those questions and some of those ideas about players that may move on because we will talk about that as the show sort of progresses throughout the week. So don't worry about that. But we'll get to the second part of the video from Lee, and then we'll move forward. So, Daz, when you're ready, my man.
There's only 2 Callum Wilsons.
Okay, and on to Leon now, and a rumour that's not going away is Musa Dembele. Now, we know about him. He's played in the Premier League. He's played in Scotland for Celtic. We know he's a goal scorer. Newcastle United need goals. So maybe it wouldn't be the worst option. I did say on the show last week that I felt he'd be a backup to Callum Wilson. He probably doesn't offer any more than what Callum Wilson offers. But as I said, Newcastle need goals. And with COVID super rife at the moment, who's to say that Callum Wilson can't pick up an injury or pick up COVID, and, then there's all sorts of problems. Who's going to get the goals from that point? So maybe it would be a good option. And as we know with Dembele, he's not afraid to go out on loan mid-season. He went to Atletico Madrid last season. Admittedly, it didn't work out. Again, he suffered with COVID and an injury. But, it could have been a successful loan had that not got in his way. It's been an interesting season for him so far, purely because he started the season very, very well. He scored 4 goals within the first 5 games of the season and looked like really back to his best again. Then he picked up an injury, picked up a leg injury, and it put him out for 2 months. And he's literally just started to come back towards the end of November, start of December. He's just started to find his way back into the team. So it's really halted his progression this season, which really started with a lot of promise. But yeah, it is a guy with goals, and I think the best option Newcastle could probably get at this point is a 6-month loan to the end of the season. And then once the end of the season comes, Dembele's literally got a year left on his contract. Maybe at the end of a successful loan spell at Newcastle, that could become permanent. But certainly, I think he wouldn't be adverse to a loan. He's a good player. And he's got, bags of talent. He's got a great eye for goal. And yeah, maybe that's something that can happen. And maybe he wants to get out of Lyon. There's a lot of unrest there on the pitch, off the pitch. The sporting director's left and the manager is, at the moment, it's a little bit of a tentative situation whether Peter Bosz stays in charge or not. So, as it stands right now, might be a good time for him to have, a bit of fresh scenery and to go somewhere else at this current moment. But we'll see what happens with that. And, hopefully there'll be a few signings coming through the door very soon.
Again, a great point from Lee, talking about Musa Dembele. There seems to be a real sort of interest at the moment of Lyon getting him, sort of moving him off the books. I know that they're really interested in another player that they want to bring in, and they've got a short window to bring this player in. And I think it's been already mentioned. I think Sean Casey on Twitter had talked about it, and a number of others have talked about it too. So it may be that deal is something that could really sort of be done. But I mean, we talked about that a little bit, Jordan, last week about the Dembele. Even more so, I think there's a need now for him. I mean, Lee said, he is very much of the Callum Wilson mould, and wondered, last week when he wondered why would we get that deal? Now that Callum Wilson's out for at least a month, surely that's the perfect deal to be done and wouldn't necessarily be massively expensive.
Yeah, well, it's already been reported sort of elsewhere, but the priority to get a striker in is now high because of what's happened to Callum Wilson. We spoke last week, I think we mentioned positions at Newcastle needed to strengthen, and I said that they need a backup to Callum Wilson. Now, that maybe would have been a bonus, but now Callum Wilson is out. There's no excuses. Newcastle need to go out and get a striker. Musa Dembele's name first popped up last week from a source in the Daily Mail, and now it does seem that he is a target, and he is quite high up on the shortlist, Eddie Howe shortlist for the January transfer window. Obviously scored lots of goals for Celtic. Had a good first season in Lyon, I believe, and then sort of from then on went to Atletico Madrid, which unfortunately suffered with injuries and COVID. I think he scored only four goals this year, I think, in France. So maybe the player needs a fresh challenge. His injury record is probably a bit of a concern, given Callum Wilson has always a tackle or a sprint away from potentially being ruled out for a month, as we've already seen. So if Newcastle are bringing a striker, it's going to have to be someone with a good injury record. But as we've said previously in the show, strikers are so hard to get in January. But Dembele is certainly one that I say that is under consideration at Newcastle. And I imagine that sort of deal would be, again, a loan to buy deal potentially, with maybe a £15 million price tag at the end of the season. So, say last week wasn't too sure on the name, but this week I can confirm that he definitely is a target for Newcastle.
Great stuff. Chris, you mentioned about the striker when you talked about Ighalo, if I can pronounce that right, and you said he wouldn't be your sort of first choice. He wouldn't be that guy that you would go out or certainly be excited about if he was the main guy that we went for in the window. What about Musa Dembele? Would he be a guy that you would think, I really want to go for him? He's the type of striker that could come in and replace Callum Wilson during that 6 to 8 week period. Oh, I think you're on mute, mate. I think so.
Yeah.
Your mic's gone.
Your battery's gone in your headset. No, we can't hear you, Chris.
I'll tell you what, just while you're sorting that out, Richie, I'll come to you. With regards to that same question, really. Would he be the guy that you think, I'd like him to be our sort of first choice go-to guy to replace Wilson while he's out?
It's a tough one. He's definitely a step up on Ighalo, in my opinion. I think my only concern is, and I know he was a lot younger at the time, is his goal scoring record in the Premier League wasn't great. It was good at Celtic, but we all know Celtic isn't the same sort of level as the Premier League. So that's my only concern. You look at it, he wasn't really first choice at Lyon as well. He's played quite a bit, but I'd still have reservations, I think, going forward long term. I would see him as possibly a squad player for Newcastle, and possibly a stand-in for Wilson, but I wouldn't see him as like a long-term option. There's players out there that we've discussed now. A chap you've discussed last week. There's quite a few that we're like big fans of, Pete, that we've talked about that we really, really like. Whether this is the window we could get someone like that, we don't know. Obviously, we'll know in about 35 days' time whether we've been able to get one of them ones. But some people have said in the chat about we've got the money to buy anyone, and I think if we do send me, I wouldn't mind having a stab at someone who's what you would class as next level or future next level. And I think we talked about last week. There was Vlahovic. We all like him, and for what room his buyout clause, you could still hit that, and you've still got a lot of FFP available and stuff like that. But Dembele, squad, I would say a squad player, and he would probably come and do a good job for six months. But it's not someone I'd look as a long-term option for Newcastle.
And
No,
then
that's a fair point. Go on, Nash.
Rich, would you pair Musa and Osam together, the brothers, in black and white? Would you?
No, I think Usman Dembele. I think my concern for him is his wages he's on and the amount he'd cost. He's just too injury prone. It's we for this. You can revisit all these in the summer when we're a bit further on. We need people who are going to come in now, do a job, and hit the ground running. And I think that's why we're trying to get experienced players, but also that youth and the fire, and they've got legs and want to prove themselves in Premier League level as well, and also do it going forward and build a team around. I know Usman Dembele has been linked constantly in the same with Musa. I don't see them as long-term options. And to be fair, Usman Dembele, yes, he's a fantastic player when he's fit, but it's how often you're going to have him on the pitch.
Yeah,
I think you've segued nicely into the next point, because Ousmane Dembele was going to be a player that I wanted to talk about. And Jordan, Ousmane Dembele has been heavily linked with us in the last sort of 24, 48 hours with regards to coming to Newcastle, even in January. And it looks like the contract talks with Barcelona have broken down due to his level of demands. It's then instantly been reported that his agent is then gone and contacted both Newcastle United and Manchester United as a potential deal, whether it's in the summer or whether it's now. It's looking like Newcastle would be a January move from the reports that we've heard. What have you heard with regards to that Ousmane Dembele? Is there any sort of truth to the fact that they're talking to the club, or is it a little bit of sort of agent work to try and drum up interest?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. Ousmane Dembele was one of the first players that Newcastle's new owners inquired about when the takeover was approved. So that was a couple of months ago now. He's a player that has struggled with injuries at Barcelona. Barcelona have been keen to keep the player, as we've all heard, been in contract talks with Barcelona. Hasn't quite materialised yet in terms of signing a contract with Barcelona, but I think a lot of it, in terms of what you hear now, is agent talk. Trying to get out there that, if you're not going to offer him a new deal now, then my client will end up, going to Newcastle, for example, or as you mentioned there, Manchester United. And that's what you've got to be wary about in this transfer window. There's a lot of cases like that. There's a lot of players like that who have agents who are, using Newcastle as a way of getting their name out of there. But Dembele is a player that has been on, or is on, Newcastle's radar. But whether that deal can happen, I'm not too sure, to be honest. It seems like Newcastle are stuck in the middle of some, say, agent talk and arguments between the player, the agent, and the club as well.
No, I think it's a great point. Chris, I know you missed out slightly with the Musa Dembele talk, but we've moved on to Ousmane Dembele now. Where we'll segue nicely into that sort of conversation, and the question I want to ask you is Ousmane Dembele has only completed 9 90-minute matches for Barcelona since he left Borussia Dortmund, and it wasn't last season. It was he's been there a number of years now. Do you think personally that is the type of player that we should sign, regardless of the talent that he has?
No. Do you know what? It's nice and easy, this one for me. I would stay clear of Ousmane Dembele. Again, I question his attitudes a little bit. I genuinely think he would be here for the money, and that's it. His injury records just sets alarm bells off to me, and he's on a very, very handsome wage packet, and I just wonder whether he would be the right kind of signing for us at this moment in time. Jordan mentioned a while ago, which is absolutely right. There's only so many flair players that you can kind of accommodate, and certainly in this January transfer window, he would be one of the top players I would avoid at all costs, because not only does he have a terrible injury record, I also am not sure how. I don't think he'd be coming here because he's excited about the project. He'd be coming here because he was excited about the number of noughts on the end of his contract.
Yeah,
that is the reason that I think he'd come here. So for me, I wouldn't get him. Just to quickly answer your question as well, Pete, about Musa Dembele. Yeah. He big upgrade on Igalo. Am I excited by him? Not really. I think he'd definitely be a big improvement on Dwight Gale. I remember speaking to a Celtic fan ages ago, and he was telling me that Edouard is light years ahead of Musa Dembele, and that worries me a little bit. I do still feel like we missed out big time on Edouard. If we could sign Edouard now, I would have loved him, because he's really making an impact at Palace. So for me, Musa Dembele, don't get me wrong, I'd be happy if we signed him. He's a marked improvement on what we've got. Certainly from the bench. I think I'd take Callum Wilson over him, if I'm honest. But if it was a reasonable 10 million fee, like you were saying before, why not have a punt on him, and then in a couple of years, if it's not working out, just move him on. And no doubt we'd get more than 10 million from him. And just to add in, Pete, just the last thing I wanted to say, in terms of our stature as a club building, we're going to end up, even if we make, and mistakes will be made in the transfer window, there's no doubt about it, whether it's this transfer window or future ones, but we're going to end up being a club like your Liverpool, like your Man City, like your Man United, where we bring in players who end up being, like squad players, but we will end up making money on these players because they've played for Newcastle United. Yeah. And that's another factor when it comes to taking risks on certain players. As long as you bring them in for a reasonable fee, you'll always get your money back, or maybe make a bit of money on them. So I would just go out there and get them.
Yeah, just one thing I'd like it's a question for Jordan, because it's something that we touched on with a guy you might know, Jordan, Liam Kennedy, on our Christmas special.
Yes. Sure.
Yeah, no, I never heard of him. No, we only see him every 6 months ourselves. But no, he was kind of saying as well that it does look like that there's a group of people in Newcastle trying to get us up and running to bring in transfers for this window, but it also kind of looks like there's someone out there working on behalf of Newcastle to try and get a marquee signing, and that could be where that Dembele link, the Barca version, is kind of. Have you seen anything like that, or is that anything you've experienced in your research?
No, the new owners do want to make a statement of intent this January. And as I say, it depends how you define marquee signing, because a marquee signing for me would be a Kieran Trippier, or a marquee signing for me would be a Steve Botman. So not necessarily a Usman Dembele, for example, but as I've mentioned before, he was a player that was one of the first players that Newcastle inquired about under the new ownership. So I think that a lot of this January as well is just putting feelers out of players. Who actually wants to come and play for Newcastle United. Stay away from the money side. Obviously, the money side is, whether you like it or not, is going to attract players to Newcastle now because of how much they have. But above all that, particularly in your first couple of years of building, you want players that want to genuinely come and help build the project. So that just goes back to the recruitment that Newcastle have to do. Newcastle have to be very, very patient and do the right recruitment, research the players well. Get a feeling from them that they actually want to come and play for this football club. That they see that this window is so difficult because it's the first window under the new ownership. A lot of fans are expecting big money to be spent. Now that still might be the case, but you've also got to watch. You've got to watch who you're going to sign. You can't just go out and spend X amount on a household name. It's got to be the right recruitment. Just for example, before we talk about players like Isco, for example. Great name, but under Newcastle in their current circumstance, would that be the right signing? I'm not sure. So it's going to be a long window, and the recruitment's got to be right. You can have all the money in the world, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee your success, and the new owners know that. And I say the money that they're going to have to spend is going to have to be spent correctly.
Cool. Cheers, Jordan.
So an interesting point that Richie's just put in the chat, but we'll leave that one for next week, because I want you to come with this name next week, mate. So we're not going to discuss that too much yet, because for all we know, it might change and he might already be at the club by next week. But we'll keep the viewers guessing on our little kind of secret conversation there. What I want to do is get into the player focus. Now, Martin won't be able to, because Martin's had to drop off for this evening. So we'll save Martin's key player focus for next week. But I'm really interested to see the player focuses from Chris and Richie. So let's start with Chris. Your player focus. Talk to us about your player focus, why you've chosen this player, and what you think they could give to Newcastle if we were able to sign them.
Yeah. Okay, Pete. So maybe not the most important position to fill at this present moment, but certainly one that I think is an opportunity for us to get in a player who could be at the club for the next 4, 5, 6 years. And that player who I think we should bring in is Luca Dean. And for me, Luca Dean is. Do you know what? It's an absolute no-brainer, mate. It's an absolute no-brainer. I mean, obviously being from Liverpool, I've got a lot of blue mates, and if you asked them 6 to 12 months ago who their favourite player was, it was Luca Dean. And if you say that about your left back, if you remember, Pete, when we were in the Championship in 09-10, and any Newcastle fan you spoke to said how much they loved Jose Enrique. Like that Championship season, he was outstanding. And I feel like Luca Dean is someone. If he wasn't having the troubles he was having with Rafa now, you'd be talking 40, 50 million for him. And the fact that Rafa wants rid of him, he wants to get out. French international, 43 caps, I believe. I did a bit of research on him before. 43 caps, 28 years old. He's just, he would improve our team no end. And for me, I think we should go all out and get Luca Dean, because I think you're probably talking 20 million tops. I even think, I mean, they've mentioned there 25 million. I even think between 15, 20 million, I think you could get him, because Rafa just wants rid. And again, talking about taking advantage of financial fair play and clubs struggling, you know, with regards to salaries and wages and stuff, Everton are probably top of that list. And I just think he'd be a great acquisition. I think he would slot into the team nicely. French international, a certain Alan St. Maximin just in front of him. Mate, I think it's perfect.
Great choice. A really, really interesting choice that. And actually, as we've said, that you know, there is a heavy link with him leaving Everton Football Club. But Jordan, from your point of view, you know, obviously, I think you'll probably agree. Luca Dean is a great choice for us to come in. We need a left back. Jamal Lewis, who isn't going to be back until late January. We know that Matt Ritchie can't play in that role, and you know, I agree with Chris. I think a £15 million deal could be done if we were to put that in. But what are your thoughts on Luca Dean? And two, do you think there's any truth in the links that there've been with regards to Luca Dean?
Yeah, my thoughts on Luca Dean is I agree with everything Chris said there. You know, a French international, a good, solid Premier League fullback. We speak about Kieran Trippier and what he'd bring. Luca Dean would probably bring similar in terms of, as I think we mentioned on the previous show as well. You know, you have that free kick specialist or that set piece specialist. The Newcastle lack someone in the squad that has that delivery. So as a player, it would be a great signing. Really like the player, and in typical Rafa fashion, has sort of fell out with a player. As much as we all love Rafa Benitez on here, you know, he does have a tendency to fall out with players. It's, you know, if you don't buy into Rafa's way, then you're out. We've seen that with poor Jack Colback after the Championship promotion. He's just one of the few players. You know, there was by the end there was quite a few players that got a bit sick of Rafa, given how intense he was. And when Steve Bruce sort of first came in, it was a breath of fresh air, because ultimately Steve Bruce let you do whatever you want. But as we found out under Steve Bruce's reign, that freedom only lasts for so long, and players actually want coached, and that's what Eddie Howe's came and done. But yeah, get back on the Luca Dean. I'm not sure that's a target at this time for Newcastle, but you know, a lot can happen. January, a lot can change, and if he was a player that was become available, then my personal opinion, then why not? The fullback situation at Newcastle. You know, you've got Jacob Murphy, who's been playing there, not a right back. Javier Manquillo. Now, I do like Manquillo, but unfortunately, I think he's got a lot wrong with him defensively. Played well the other night against Manchester United. Had a couple of other decent games when he came back in the team. I think Burnley and Norwich, for example. But as a Premier League fullback, a regular Premier League fullback in Newcastle, has struggled. Jamal Lewis, I like Jamal Lewis, and I rate Jamal Lewis a lot. He hasn't really had a fair crack at Newcastle, I don't think. He started off okay, got COVID, got a really bad injury as well. So he didn't get an injury. Was actually just ignored by Steve Bruce. Now he's came back into the team, started well under under Eddie Howe, but has then done his hamstring. So you need competition in them fullback areas, because if Jamal Lewis is to get injured, unfortunately, Matt Ritchie's been a great servant for this club, but isn't a left back option. So they need competition in that area. And if a deal was to come up for Luca Digne, I don't know the price tag, but if it was in sort of reach, then yeah, why not? But in terms of the Newcastle United's point of view, I'm not sure if that is a target. But as I say before, January can move so quickly, so you just never know.
Just to add in, Jordan, it made me laugh when you mentioned Matt Ritchie. I was on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, and Talksport ran like a little one-off special about what Newcastle's team could look like at the end of the January transfer window, and there was like a picture of it. And by the end of the January transfer window, they had Matt Ritchie in at left back. So straight away, I just shut it and was like, "Really? Is that really what we're aiming for?"
All credibility out the door. When
I just closed it. I was like, "No."
I'm not surprised, but I think that's a great. I think it's a great choice, Luca Digne. I think both Chris and Jordan touched on their set piece specialism within their game, and just imagine the level of crosses that you could get into the box, the quality of crossing coming from wide areas, the overlapping. Just it would be fantastic to have those two just bombing forward and creating havoc in attacking areas. But Richie, I'm going to come to you because you've also got a very interesting player focus. So fire away with your choice, because again, I'd be very, very happy with this player coming in.
Well, before I put the picture up, what I wanted to do is I wanted to go with someone we hadn't been linked with, but someone that would tick all the boxes. And I know everybody on the panel, I presume, I know the load of lads would agree with it, but I hope Jordan would go along with it as well. He ticks a lot of boxes in an area where I think we still need it, and it probably would be a luxury signing if we went down this window. But the reason why I brought him up was because he has been linked with another club move this window, so it's just interesting to see whether it would be something we're in the mix with. And I went for this guy, Rafinha. Now, the reason why I went for him is I think
nice.
If you look at, we've got Sam Maxon's one of the first names on the team sheet, but I think with Rafinha we need someone on that opposite flank. Another reason why it'd be interesting for this window as well is because we've been touching on centre forwards and stuff like that. This season he's got 8 goals in 16 games for Leeds, and he's been playing as a striker with Bamford being out. So we know he could cover in that role as well. So that could be something where you could play him in the middle while Wilson was out, and when Wilson's back, you could then move him across. He's been at Leeds for 18 months now, and we now know that he can do it at this level. And I think he's a bit more dependable than what ASM is. You don't get the unpredictability you do after ASM, but you do tend to get the quality on the end of it, whether it's either an assist, when he got a lot more last season when Bamford was knocking them in, or this season you get in the end where he's actually finishing them. He's recently just become a Brazilian international in October. He's already scored 2 goals and 5 goals for Brazil as well. Transfer market have got him down as valued at 36 million, which would be just over double the amount that Leeds paid from 18 months ago. I don't think he'd be looking at 36 million realistically. I think he'd probably be looking closer to between 40 and 50 if you do. I think, the reason why I brought this up is I think he ticks all the boxes, but obviously there's rumours that Bayern Munich have got something linked up with and possibly going there. And I just thought, this guy, he ticks all the boxes. Someone else that their contract runs out some of the time is Traore, but the reason why I went more for Rafinha was because Traore doesn't have that end product. He's got the speed like ASM has, but he doesn't have an end product. And sometimes, and we've been saying this for weeks and weeks with ASM, he's got a lot of good attributes, but his end product sometimes is lacking. And that's what we need, something on the other front. And that's why I went for Rafinha. I just thought it'd be an absolutely hell of an addition for Newcastle. And it was what we haven't been linked with him. And it could be a complete pie in the sky sort of pick that I've put. I just wanted to put someone that I thought would fit what we're possibly looking for, and you could still, you can get good 3, 4, 5 years out. He was only 25-year-old as well, so his world is oyster sort of thing. He's at a passionate club in Leeds now, but Newcastle will be the next step for him if he was to make the move up here.
Wow, what a player! I tell you what, I think I'm excited by the potentials of all of these players mentioned. I think Albert Mooney is absolutely spot on. We're shopping in Harrods, not Primark, and I think that kind of typifies the conversations that were happening. And it's important to stress that we're not saying that these players are going to come in. They may well not, but I think as Newcastle fans, but all of us here on the show tonight, but also everyone in the chat, it's just nice to talk about these type of players potentially coming into the club. And there's no reason, whether it's now or in the summer, that someone like Rafinha, someone like Luka Dean can be part of our team and really contribute to us. We certainly have got the financial capabilities of buying these players, and we've certainly got the money to cover their wages. So it's just nice to be able to talk about these players. But again, a talented player in Rafinha, and I would love him to be in this club. But we've got a surprise key focus, because I didn't think Daz came with one today. I didn't ask him to, but he came. He's come with
Pete, would I let you down? Would I let you down like that?
Of course not. Of course not. Why did I ever doubt you, Daz? But
I was ready for. I was ready for this 3 days ago, Pete. Yeah, so I'm still shout out to Jordan. I'm still waiting for the Tunali. The little write-up on Tunali from last week. I haven't seen it yet, but it's coming. I know you wouldn't let me down. I did get a call from the club as well. They want me to come on in as a scout, but I said no. I'm staying with Loaded for the January transfer window. I might take up the offer in the summer. So my suggestion is the prize package. One people probably never heard of. No, I didn't until I saw his name, and someone we have been linked to. But who is he? So my link is Sandar Asmund, the Iranian Messi, or he likes. I think himself, he'd like to be known as the next Zlatan. So yeah, so this guy, he's 26. He's valued around 22 million. I've seen quote of 17 million somewhere. But yeah, he's scoring a lot of goals for St. Petersburg in Russia, and he's got a lot of goals for Iran. Okay, Iran, not the world beaters, let's say. But yeah, and he's bagging in the goals for Petersburg. But yeah, he's also linked to Everton and Lyon. I suppose that's maybe where the link that if Dembele came to us, that maybe he would end up at Lyon. But we're in the mix as well. And the reason why I've kind of focusing on him is that he's one of the key players in the Middle East, one of the best players from the Middle East. And I'm sure Piff would like to have someone from that region as well, kind of as a poster boy. And for me, okay, he probably not top striker, let's say, but as a second striker option, or especially with Wilson being injured, I think he would be a good option, and not at a bad price either. So that's why I'm throwing him into the mix. Anyone ever heard of him?
I've heard of the name. I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen too much of him. I don't know about the other guys, but just before they answer, I think
he scored against.
What were you say?
So yeah, I think there's a bit of a delay again, Pete. But yeah, I think he scored against Chelsea. He scored in the past against Juventus and against Bayern Munich. So, and this in the Champions League. So he has scored a few notable goals.
Interesting. He is linked with Lyon, and you are right. There's a little bit of a carousel going on here with regards to him potentially coming into Lyon, and they want him in January. And in order for that deal to happen, they want Musa Dembele out, which is where the link to Newcastle, I think, has come about. I know, again, Sean Casey had that conversation with regard to that potential sort of merry-go-round happening. So again, it's a really good option, a good striker. I don't know too much about him. Boys, do you know too much about him? Jordan, Chris, Richie?
Not too much. I've heard of him, and I've seen him being linked with a bigger move. But I must admit, I don't know that much about him. But anyone who's called the Iranian Messi, bring him in.
I'll just touch on a good point that it's about the new owners want to sign sort of like a Middle East player. That as Dad mentioned, that's that poster boy. So I mean, I'll be brutally honest. I've never heard of the guy. It's new to me. I'll put him along with Tonelli for me, Newcastle world peace.
Right up.
But no, he's hitting it on the head there about a poster boy in terms of from where the new owners are from. So just an interesting point you made, and one to watch out for as well.
Nah, definitely. Again, a great choice, and like I said, myself and Martin will come with ours next week, where we'll discuss our sort of key player focus in a little bit more detail. But look, we're going to go to the questions now, and we did say there's been some fantastic questions in the chat, and maybe some quick fire ones to throw at Jordan before we wrap up the show. But Daz, what's out there that's questions?
Well, I've marked them for you. Pete.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I'll put them up for you. So, the first one I thought was quite funny was this one from Paul Oxley. Do journalists put names of players into a tombola and draw them out for a column in the paper?
No, not at all.
Easy.
It might seem like that in terms of your overseas reports. So the likes of, there's a lot of newspapers in Italy, particularly when the takeover went through. I'm sure Newcastle were linked with every Serie A player ever. So a lot of the rumours do come from abroad at first. But certainly myself as a journalist, and I know people who work in the same trade as me would never just write a name for the sake of it. They do get the information from somewhere, but I do appreciate it. Probably does feel like a bit of a tombola, given Newcastle being linked with about 100 names a day.
All right, we're gonna get linked with Rafinha and Newsman tomorrow, aren't we?
Yeah, surprise me. Go on,
David Shepard's brought it up saying, with the injuries, does Jordan think we'll push the boat out more than originally planned?
Good question.
I think it's a possibility, certainly in the striking area. Callum Wilson's injury obviously has made the striking department a lot more of a priority. Injuries, I suppose you've got Federico Fernandez and Jamal Lewis who are meant to be back sort of mid to late January, so might not be as pressing. A lot of the other cases are obviously, a lot of the other absentees at the minute are obviously COVID. So I wouldn't necessarily say it would force Newcastle to go bigger than expected, but the position I mentioned there, the striking position, that would be one position that Newcastle are putting more focus on now because of the situation they find themselves with Callum Wilson.
Jordan, can I just ask sorry, Rich, I was just going to say, sorry, mate. Can I just ask a little add-on to that, Jordan? Do you think, first of all, do you think we're going to bring two strikers in? And secondly, do you think us bringing two strikers in hinges on Dwight Gale being moved out, or do you think there's still room to have the two strikers?
No, you make a good point about moving players out. Now, if you remember at the start of the season, you've got the 25-man squad, which then has to be renamed in January. And Eddie Howe's already touched upon it. If Newcastle sign players, they've openly got to move players out. Otherwise, they're going to be left to play, or not play at all, because they'll not be able to play in under 23. So they'll be rotting in the reserves, which isn't ideal for any player. So there is a lot of, there's an urgency to move players out as well. And certainly Dwight Gale as a player, I think the club do need to move on. And if he was to stay, then I would suspect that would limit them getting two strikers in, but I'm not sure they are after two strikers. I think in bare minimum would be one. You'd like two, but I'd imagine one is the bare minimum.
Just as well on the striker one, there's another one that Richard Stark put in the chat earlier on, and it's Blackburn forward Ben Brereton Diaz, now as he's now known this season, has been banging the goals in for fun in the Championship. Do you think he could step up? And the other reason why I brought up was because obviously with Dwight Gale possibly could be used as a make weight, any sort of deal, any championship sort of club. Is that one something that could be worked on in your opinion?
I'm not sure. I think Ben Brennan, I think he's still quite a young lad, isn't he? His rise over the last 12 months since he started representing Chile has been absolutely remarkable. 20 goals already this season in the championship. Whether they could use a Dwight Gale to do that, I'm not too sure. I don't think Dwight Gale is an attractive proposition to championship clubs as he once was, to be honest. That might surprise a few, but if you look at Dwight Gale's injury record over the last 12 to 18 months, he's barely played a game. A few years ago, or a few transfer windows ago, we were talking about Dwight Gale being a £15 million striker. I don't think any championship club would pay anywhere near that now. You'd probably be lucky to get 5 to 7 million for him now, just purely because of how he's declined over the last couple of years. So, I'm not sure if Dwight Gale could be used as a potential option for a championship club. Obviously, Ben Brennan is the standout player in the championship right now, but no, I'm not sure on that one, to be honest. Seems to be a thing with Blackburn, certainly with Adam Armstrong as well, where players seem to be going there and doing really well. But the good thing about Newcastle under these new owners is, they can't challenge for players like that now. I used the example last week about Ben Rama, who went to West Ham, Jared Bowen. They were players that were both targets for Newcastle, but ultimately couldn't afford because Mike Ashley didn't want to pay the money. Now in the future, under these new owners, if there's any up and coming talent in the championship, there's no reason why Newcastle can't go out and buy them.
A quick one for you on this one, it'll be a simple yes or no for this one. Is any chance of Aubameyang coming in on loan?
I'll lean towards no on that one, I think.
Okay. And the last one, you might not know anything, but so it might be something that those lads have to actually do some research on for next week. And it's from Munch, and he's actually said, does anyone happen to know if there's any quarantine rules for any signings from Europe?
Yeah, no, that's a very, very good point. You almost forget we're in unprecedented times, and COVID is a massive issue still. We're seeing it now in the Premier League with games being called off. I suppose they might have to quarantine, but there'd still obviously be a way of getting the transfer done. So I don't know if say Newcastle were to sign a player on the second week of the window, maybe they would have to wait a few weeks for them to make the debut, or there might be a place where they can bend the rules, if you like. There was a rule during the lockdown where players represented the countries that could go fly to the country and then come back and not have to quarantine. So it's a very good question. I might look into that actually for a piece on Newcastle World next week, because you don't really tend to think about things like that, but that is an issue.
Yeah. There was one last fun question from Julie Baker, and it's nothing in regards to NUFC related, but she wanted to know if you had to sign one of the loaded plats to play for NUFC, who would it be and why?
Oh, tough on that.
What?
No, it's got to be Pete. It's got to be Pete.
Come on, man.
Yeah, it's got to be Pete.
Well, we all know that was the wrong answer. Don't we?
Everyone needs a Brummie in the middle, don't they? Don't need a Jordan in the middle. I need a Brummie.
Someone's like, I tell you, if you're looking for a centre midfielder, Lee is the one. Someone said he would be good as a centre back earlier on in the show. He's one of the best defensive midfielders I've ever played with. Unbelievable. So if you're looking for a centre midfielder, don't be picking me, because I don't know how to play that. All I do is hold up the ball and score goals. That's my role. But this man here, he was the proper defensive midfielder back in the day. No one could get past him. Quality player. But yeah, you know what? Fantastic questions again in the chat, and as always, keep them coming. You know what? CFC Florida absolute legend tonight. The amount of support that he's shown to the channel, his consistent and constant donations, they're all going to us building shows like this, allowing us to talk transfers with the likes of Jordan, who's an absolute pleasure having on as always. So massive thanks to CFC Florida and everyone else in the chat. We had at one point 170 watching, which is amazing for this show. Fantastic questions, great crack, great interaction from everyone, and it just makes for a super show. And you know what, guys, there's more to come. There is more to come week in, week out. We will be giving you all of the important information with regards to the transfers as it unfolds week by week.
It's actually quite a good link in there you've got, Pete, because we've had a few other questions that I actually starred, and we're actually going to be touching this as a good link into Tuesday's show. We've had loads of questions about FFP tonight because we've been talking about transfers. And next week, we have got the privilege to be able to bring you on Tuesday at 8 o'clock. We've got Kieran Maguire on the show. So hopefully, he has been on a couple of other channels. We're going to go in depth with that on Tuesday. However, we never know. We might be in the situation where we've actually purchased some players by then, or we might have some sponsorship deals. So there's been numerous figures put in chat tonight regards FFP figures. He'll actually have some exact figures for us. So it could let us know what we're looking forward to, what's going to come up if we have outgoings, which, people were looking to know tonight. So don't be afraid to miss that one on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock with Kieran Maguire.
Excellent. Looking forward to that.
Cool.
Again, like I say, massive thanks to Jordan for coming on the show. Daz, take us home.
Yeah, and there's a bit of delay in my end, so yeah, my internet survived just about this week. But yeah, just you know what to do at this stage. If you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. Also, you'll find there's a join button, and that'll allow you to become a member. If you fancy becoming a member, it's $1.99 a month. And yeah, we're pretty soon getting to running another draw and getting the wheel out again. So that'll be coming up in the coming weeks. But yeah, that's it, guys. I think for tonight. Thanks again to Jordan for coming on and putting up with us again for another week. And interesting week ahead. And of course, one last thing we should say, one very last thing when I get my picture here is Happy New Year to everybody. So Happy New Year, and wherever you may be, and where you're watching this back, or Happy New Year, really, and all the best for 2022, and a good year for us, hopefully.
Definitely.
That's it.
And you know what? Like I said, 24 hours away from the transfer window opening. We're not going anywhere. The fully loaded transfer show will be back with plenty more links, rumours, key players, voices from over the pond from Lee Davey, and you know what? Let's get excited, guys, because we've not had this for 14 years, and let's just enjoy every single moment of it. And it's been a pleasure to have Daz, Richie, Chris, Jordan, as always, and Mark on the show. Just as much of a pleasure to have you guys in the chat. And we will see you all next week for some more. Take care, guys.
Thank you, guys.
See you next year, guys. Bye-bye.